Well, why don't we go ahead and get started? I want to welcome everybody to correct me if I'm wrong, Austin or Aaron, but I believe this is the 22nd annual Bowman Design Forum. And it's hard to believe it's been so many years, but it's fantastic. My name is Matt Knox, and I'm head of the architecture department here at Kansas State University. And I want to thank you all for joining us on this annual event. It's a little bit different, obviously, this year than normal. Typically, we meet at the BBN office downtown here in Manhattan and have a great lunch with everybody and the students and representing each of the studios. And it's just a great event. And it's great to get a chance to talk to our distinguished jurors and Brent Bowman. So it's really a great thing. So unfortunately we can't do it, but it's just a little bit different this year, but we're making do. So anyway, I want to thank BBN for offering this up once again. It's a great opportunity for our students to bring in some really great critics and have this great discussion about their work. So with that, I will turn it over to Aaron and Austin and let you take it away.
Sure. Thanks, Matt. Good afternoon, everyone. There are several reasons we really enjoy sponsoring the Bowman Design Forum each year. First of all, it supports and enhances our relationship with K-State and provides an opportunity to give back to the university that most of us attended. It also allows us to celebrate the Flint Hills and the importance of landscape in our work. It brings the design discussion to one of the most beautiful but often overlooked parts of the country. And we're also able to interact with the best and brightest students. And then later on, we selfishly try to hire them at BBN, my colleagues Aaron and Olivia being two examples of that. And lastly, it allows us to interact with extremely talented firms and establish relationships with architects that we most closely identify with, like our esteemed guest jurors this year, Tim Schroeder and Nick Lindsley.
Yeah, and my name is Aaron Dyke. I'd like to say a little bit about who our two guest jurors are and why we invited them. This event was the brainchild of Brent Bowman and his friend Tom Beebe, a Chicago-based architect who had recently, at the time, won a number of awards for the Harold Washington Library. And Brent and Tom collaborated on the design for Hale Library at K-State, which also won a number of design awards. And while they were collaborating on Hale, the idea was born to engage students at the university in a positive conversation with design professionals and offer scholarships for good work. Usually and intentionally, we try to get firms from the Midwest or prairie states. That's not always the case. Regardless of where they're located, we invite firms whose work we genuinely admire. Sometimes that means they've been recognized by the American Institute of Architects, but not always. Today, that is the case. Tim Schroeder and Nick Lindsley of Newman Monson Architects have offices in Des Moines and Iowa City. They come highly decorated. Tim brought Newman Monson some of the firm's first AIA Iowa and AIA Central States regional awards. I'll be a little more brief on my introductions because you heard most of this on Monday. He was the editor-in-chief of Iowa Architecture Magazine and in 2008 received the AIA National Young Architect Award. What's exciting for me is Tim emphasizes empathy in his professional work, and under his leadership has made Newman Monson a leader in environmental stewardship and employee and client stewardship. Nick has shaped his local community and the broader architectural community by embodying the principles of citizen architect. He, in 2018, won the AIA Iowa Young Architect Award and in 2020 won the National AIA Young Architect Award. Please help me virtually welcome our guests.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Are we supposed to say anything?
No,
Okay.
I think it's my turn to talk to give you a high level synopsis for those of you that don't know about the program, about the project, and then to introduce our students, and then we'll start. So the project this year is Changing Lives, Building Futures, a Boys and Girls Club for Alma, Kansas. So all 6 of our third-year studios participated in designing this proposal for a site in downtown Alma. Alma has about 800 people and is the county seat for Wabunsee, which is about 30 miles south and east of Manhattan. The county of Wabunsee has 2 elementary schools, 1 middle school, and 1 high school with minimal after-school programs. The Boys and Girls Club that we decided to do then fills a void that gives the young people of the county social, emotional, and health support or assistance for those young folks. The emphasis of our program was to focus on healthy eating and lifestyles through creating a foundation in the culinary arts. The program was a complex program. It had 3 main areas. 1 for the public to interact with the staff of the facility. 1 that was semi-public, which at times invited people from the community in for activities, and at other times was exclusively used just for the members of the Boys and Girls Club. And then there were private areas where no other folks, unless they were members or staff, could go. And those were the private areas. The program also required stacking multiple floors. It had a slope to the site. All of these things were new to our young folks, and it was situated in an urban area. So those were complex tasks for the students to really deal with. You'll see that each of the student nominees took the program and did a great job with it. We could celebrate each and every one of them and be proud of their being nominated to represent their studio and how they interact with you today. So I would like to introduce them to you. We have 6 students. We have Natalie Cox, and I don't know if Natalie's camera's not on. She's from Torgeir Norheim Studio. Matt Eichler is from Todd Gabbard's studio. Jo Beth Hancock is from Jonathan Desi Olive's studio. I didn't see Abby, sorry. Sorry, Abigail Hutchinson is from Brendan Tucker's studio. Amber Pryor is from Michael McGlynn's studio. And then Jada Rezek is from my studio. So each student, again, will have 8 minutes to present, and I will give them a gentle nudge if they start getting close to that. And the jurors will have about 15 minutes to engage with each one of the designers. So with that, I would like to start with Natalie Cox.
All right, thank you, Wendy. Let's get started here. Okay, so hello, my name is Natalie Cox, and this is my Boys and Girls Club in Alma, Kansas. So for my design, I wanted to create a space that not only had a large functioning teaching kitchen, but also a farm to table relationship, as well as a connection.
Are you going to share your screen?
Oh, I thought I was. That would be good, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that would be good.
Yeah.
Happens to the best of us.
Can you see my screen now?
Yeah, and if you could put it full screen, that would be good. There you go.
So I'll just start back for the screen. So for my design, I wanted to create a space that not only had a large functioning teaching kitchen, but also a farm to table relationship, as well as a connection to family and community. So having a seat at the table, you know, this is what we want for every child, to see themselves in a snapshot of home, love, and family centered around a table for them. So taking a look at the existing site plan, we have our service circulation consisting of Missouri Street, which happens to be Alma's main arterial road. Next, our serve circulation in Ohio Street acting as the alleyway, and the pedestrian traffic from Missouri Street to the city pool and park. So cutting off that foot traffic from Missouri Street to the city pool and park would really be a detriment to Alma's downtown. Therefore, keeping a level of permeability between the three has always been important early on in the design process. And here's a visual connection between the archway and the adjoining pizzeria. So during our site visit, I noticed some areas of opportunity. Thinking about our buildings, thinking about the building's existing views, I chose to engage the nearby post office building's roof to provide views to the windows above, and then also to the Boys and Girls Club. Also wanting to enhance that presence of the pizzeria wall. So known as the city of native stone, I knew I needed to use limestone and also stay within the historical context of the current building facades, considering Alma's downtown is a historical district registered with the Kansas Historical Society. So a common theme were these beautiful, ornate, large and metal stone cornices. And I knew I wanted to implement that in some way by taking that original profile and simplifying it into its most simplistic form. So ideas of public versus private started to emerge, where the building could read like an Italian palazzo block, where the public activity would be on the street level and the more private activity would be on those higher stories. And what started to emerge were these shifting planes that kind of pull away from each other. Here's a look at the proposed site plan. And as you can see, my building footprint occupies a vast majority of the available square feet up to the lot line. And you can see how I engaged that nearby post office building with an outdoor patio. So here's a diagram illustrating the connection to park. And there's a 7-foot grade change from Mission Street to Ohio Street, which is connected by an ADA ramp. So by using the pizzeria wall, I was able to incorporate a community mural that acts as a mediator between the park, downtown, and the Boys and Girls Club. And here is just a rendering of that street shot, and you can see that visual connection to the park and how the building opens up to the community. So the basic geometry of the building is this cornered entry and is essentially repeated again on the second floor with a 10-foot setback. So my 5 systems are structure, which is laid out in a grid pattern, territories where red indicates administration, orange, teaching kitchen and service, blue is the 6th through 12th grade members, and yellow dedicated to our younger members K through 5th. Next, we have circulation, which shows the main pathways leading to the exits of the building and that carry you through those different territories. Climate, a daylighting diagram that indicates where the most intense sunlight will be present in the building. Therefore, means of shade control and glazing were carefully planned. And lastly, combining all 4 systems together to create enclosure, where the degrees of public versus semi-public start to reveal themselves. So on the main floor plan, upon entering, you're greeted by a secured reception area that allows you in, where children can hang up their personal belongings, and then a series of steps and seats that are incorporated into a ramp that lead you down to the recreational area, where you get your first glance of the dining room. So the dining room is centered at the most dynamic corner of the building. And I chose to create the dining room a double height space so that the chatter and the laughter and all the wonderful smells that the children make could carry up to the 2nd floor and invite people down. And also the main interior circulation paths could lead you right to the dining area. So taking a look at the elevation change, the lowest elevation is a 7-foot grade change shown here. Next, we move up to a 4-foot increase, and lastly, a 7-foot increase back up to street level. And it was important for me to keep the garden, the kitchen, and the dining room all in one level so that gardening, cooking, learning, and bonding could happen without pause. So moving upstairs to help children with wayfinding, I coordinated colors associated with activity. Therefore, red represents administration, yellow, K through 5th grade areas, blue, 6th through 12th grade members. And so here's a section through the commons area above and the gym below with the kitchen. And then a rendering of that gymnasium where these two girls are. This would be a pull-out stage on casters for performances. Next, we move to the transverse section, slightly inward into the foam pit, and you'll notice the double height space for the dining room and the fireplace, as well as a section through the open office and the elevator. And here's a rendering of that dining space and reception. Because choice is important, and especially for children that usually don't have that luxury, I made sure to offer different colored seating so that further drives that sense of my chair, my place, my home. And then taking a look back in the opposite direction, because the staircase is located in a central location, I wanted to create an experience for the user, and also having that extra 4 feet below, I could use that to my advantage by doing something playful. And then for safety precaution, I put a polished aluminum reflective surface on the bottom of the stairs for some of the smaller members if they got stuck and needed help, and it's just also fun to look at yourself floating in foam. And then here's a window seat. It's not only a place just to put on your shoes, but also a sensory downtime, as well as views from the outside of the fun within. And here's the third section, which focuses on the kitchen, wanting to connect the community to the Boys and Girls Club so that the pedestrian using the muraled ramp could look in and see what's cooking. And here's taking a look at a rendering of the kitchen, and notice the differing choice of seating. And again, back aligning with the fireplace. So for the west building elevation, I was sensitive to the fact of the intense sun exposure. So keeping the windows high on the lower level, and then adding that louvered sunscreen above, in addition to the large roof overhang to help combat any unwanted heat gain. Next is the south elevation with the ADA ramp looking into the kitchen and the garden. And the east elevation with bifolding lift doors into the gym to cater to any community meals if need be. Also the playroom above, which has views to the park, fire stair, and trash dock. And then lastly, the north elevation, taking a look at the adjoining building with the patio above. And here's what that looks like from the interior. So thank you.
Thanks for the presentation.
Thank you.
Very concise. Nick, did you have anything to start?
Yeah, just overall, a few general comments. That I was very impressed with just the completeness of your project. It seems like everything you need to communicate your ideas and concepts are here. Also just the way you branded it very successfully. I feel like I'm getting a presentation from an architect actually talking to the client. You've done a nice job just having a consistency to your basically aesthetics and graphics throughout the presentation. So great job there as well. Yeah, I think there's a lot of successful things going on here. I appreciate your sensitivity to the context of the site, tying into limestone buildings on the main street, and then as you pull off the second level, starting to get more of a simplified, almost more contemporary feel to it. One thing I think you could look at as you move forward with the way you're detailing things is maybe not get so literal with some of the stone detailing on the first level. I liked your move with how you looked at the traditional cornice along Main Street and then looked at a way to simplify it and modernize it. I think you could do the same thing at the main level and let the stone kind of speak for itself as a material, emphasize that texture. Right now, I mainly say that because I feel like there's a lot visually going on with the articulation. Otherwise the way you're breaking up the mass, responding to the different program behind the exterior wall, I think is very successful right now. And from a sighting standpoint, I really appreciate your sensitivity to that pedestrian experience and wanting to maintain the connection between Missouri Street, if I'm saying that right, and then the pool area to the east. I thought that was a really nice gesture.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would echo that. That I think the way the massing and the articulation of the structure blends between the 1-story to the south and the 2-story to the north is beautiful. And the facade on this side, especially, is the way it's articulated is, really makes for a welcoming presence and makes you want to approach the building. I had echo Nick's comment about the post, I think it's the post office, the 1-story building that, and maybe as the project moved forward, it would evolve. And this is a starting point, but to not be literal with the extension of a historic, what looks like a historic building. I don't know for sure if it is, but we always try to, in the way we approach things, not to blur the hands of time in any architectural articulation we make. So though we might echo it, we don't make an exact duplication of something historic.
Okay.
But yeah, it's just a beautiful building that is welcoming. I think some of that was lost on the east facing side. There's a lot of solidity there. So what's facing the park maybe could have had some of this beauty and interest to it. The placement of the gymnasium, can be a struggle to put occupied space above a gymnasium. It can also be a struggle to put occupied space below a gymnasium because of all the balls bouncing and things like that. But it's also a space with a large span that can create a bouncy, kind of floor when you try to occupy it above. What else did I have? Did you have anything else, Nick?
Yeah, something. A few things I think you do really well. Good architects often find opportunities where there seemingly aren't any, or make something out of something that might be banal. What you did by just by taking advantage of the roof next door, I thought was a great move. Obviously, in reality, you're going to need to get approvals and all that, but you were able to see that opportunity and jump on it and make it an amenity for the building that might not have otherwise been. I really liked what you did with the foam pit under the stair. I was just thinking, like, as a kid, I would love to go jump in that. I bet that thing would be full all the time. One thing I was thinking with those things, with it sunken into the ground, it might be, I know this is one more step of detail, but just cleaning those things can get, kids get excited, and you might need to put a floor drain or something in that. But then next door to that, your dining area, I thought was very successful. One thing I think would make it better, right now you have that dining table right next to the front door, which I think is the perfect location. It kind of showcases that area, and it makes it kind of integral to the pedestrian experience and community at street level. Though I imagine that everybody in town, when they see this building, they're going to want to use this for every event, for every group they have in every organization. And having some way to close that space off from the regular function of the building, I think would be good. If I'm not mistaken, it was fairly open right now, flowing from the main lobby into there. So having some way to make that private, so someone can use that for an event and close off kind of the noise going on elsewhere in the facility, I think would help.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought you did a great job in your, beyond being concise, focusing in on the experiences within the building, starting out with your first slide where you talked about the purpose and had the images of the children there that kind of set the tone and the brand, as Nick mentioned. I had to chuckle when you said you wanted to celebrate all the smells that the kids make.
Yeah. Hopefully they're good.
Yeah, I think it was definitely so we were working on a project a few years ago where the client, it was a healthcare project, and the client said, if a child's coming to this facility, I want to make sure they smile when they see this building, because it's a odd experience. But you made this facility seem very comfortable, very friendly to all ages, and I thought I thought that was very successful, especially how you use color and color material and light. I think great job there.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think your interior design background comes through in some of those color moves. It was really nice. One drawing that I thought was super cool was the elevation perspective. It had kind of black and white existing pictures on either side, and then the colored building in the middle. That was
Can you go back to that one?
yeah, I found that to be a compelling drawing.
Please don't get sick, Aaron.
It's okay.
I think it was my.
Well, all of your drawings.
Yeah.
Down here.
Yeah, that one down there at the bottom. I have had a chance to preview some of the other students' presentations as well, and across the board, just good drawings. But that one I found to be pretty compelling. What jumps out to me a little bit as something you could think about as you move forward is one thing we talk about a lot is structural clarity and where to express it and where not to. There seems to be a couple of structural ideas here, one with exposing heavy timber wood on the outside, but there's also steel bar joist ideas on the inside. And I don't know if that was intentional or not, but that could be something where, you know, is there a fun play between the two systems, or do you just pick one system and stick with it? I don't know if that was something that you had talked about along the way.
I thought I just envisioned this gym with bar joists and looking like at the rule of thumb, seeing, you know, how deep that would be. And so then moving up top, I wanted it to feel more just more light and airy. And so
Expressive, yeah.
warmer. And so, yeah, I just went with wood beams up there.
Yeah.
And I thought you were very clear with your structural grid. I think there's some play you can do with trying to make it a little more consistent in some places, but overall, I thought you did a great job understanding your grid and understanding how to align different components of the building to that. Not something you always see at this level of schooling, so nice job.
Thank you.
Yeah, really nice project, Natalie. I really like the renderings and the clear and concise drawings. You can tell by the renderings that you have a really good grasp of detailing and how those things start to work together. It's pretty impressive for a third-year student. So yeah, great project.
Thank you.
Did you have any precedents you used for this project?
I did look at, oh gosh, no, I can't remember because I didn't write it down. But yes, I did for the top roof. I looked at a lot of pavilion styled roofs, and I have been looking at that style for quite some time now, and I just love that. Just a large roof. It just is so capturing to me.
Yeah, those type of, you don't see those in Iowa as often, but like if you go out west, like I don't know if you know Carney Logan Burke, a firm from, I believe, Jackson, Wyoming, or Jackson Hole. They do those roofs really well. And if you're interested in trying to hone that detail as you take this project forward or into your portfolio, I'd take a look at those, their firm for that kind of work.
Yeah, I'll look them up. Thank you.
Minor deal, but the corner on a roof like that can be hard to support. So in reality, there might be something more, or maybe it's a wood deck that can cantilever out that far, but the minor deal at this point. You'd have a structural engineer telling you that.
Yeah, right. No.
Yeah, you have the benefit of not having to deal with that.
I can't remember if you had a diagram of it. One diagram I'd like to see, and maybe you do, and I'm just not remembering it, but something that kind of explains your approach to materiality and massing, showing kind of that heavy monumental base, and then kind of the lacier top in a very simplified kind of partie diagram. I think that would help before you get into the really detailed images of what your outcome was.
Okay. Yeah, that would have been good to do.
But I mean, looking at the building, it's a very clear diagram of what you're trying to get at. I think as you tell your story, starting with that very simplified version before you dive into it, helps pull the listener along, depending on who they are, whether it's your client or like this, or your jury. So.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I didn't put it together like Aaron did, but I was really drawn into the story. And then when we got to the gymnasium, I was a little. I mean, so then when you get to when you're looking at your imagery to tell your story at the end, maybe lay it all out and see where maybe doesn't the story or the narrative come together. I think the gym looked like maybe it was a little bit of toward the end of the project thrown together and didn't have as much thought into it as the rest of the project. And but overall, very impressive. Yeah.
Did you design the mural yourself, or is that already there?
I put two murals together from Google Images.
It works. It really helps the imagery of the interiors too, to have that that you're looking at that through the windows as opposed to a blank facade there. So
yeah, it helps with wayfinding too. Actually, as we're looking at images in the building, that it's always kind of that one location you go back to and can ground yourself. So
one of the best ways you can make a building great is to partner with artists. And that mural wall is the perfect opportunity, right? So there could be community involvement aspect, and you could get an artist to come out and do a fabulous image. And I think that'd be a winner.
Yeah.
Okay, we're at our time. Perfect timing there, Aaron.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for all your comments.
Thanks,
yeah,
Natalie.
thank you.
Great job.
Nice work.
So you have to start, there we go. And if Mr. Eichler can screen share.
All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Matt Eichler. Just want to thank you all for being here. It's certainly an honor to get to present today. To start, I have an exterior rendering from Missouri Street that I think depicts the partie of this project well. The idea driving this design is about two outwardly simple volumes colliding. This was inspired by the relatively simple forms of the surrounding structures, as well as Donald Judd, who, and I quote, "with his boxes allocated value to the notion of ordinariness." And working off that idea, the goal of these two colliding volumes became an attempt to encourage curiosity with the unexpected use of the ordinary. In this image, there are two unexpectedly ordinary elements. The first is the levitating translucent cube, a simple shape whose skin slightly reveals the complexity of the gravity-defying structure that supports it. The second is the limestone colored brick that covers the facades of the stereotomic volume, a combination of two materials common to the area laid in a non-standard way. Context also plays an important role in this design. The downtown strip of Missouri Street, which is highlighted in this diagram, primarily consists of retail storefronts with two major industrial buildings at the south end. I found these two buildings, the Alma Co-op and Alma Foods, interesting when juxtaposed to these storefronts. The storefronts are stereotomic, while the industrial buildings, especially the co-op, are tectonic. The storefronts are human scaled, while the industrial buildings are machine scaled. and the storefronts fit tightly on their sites while the industrial buildings sprawl across and above theirs. The collision of these two volumes from the partie attempts to express this juxtaposition through materiality, structure, and form. Zooming in on the site, this slide shows how the use of material contextualizes the project within its site. The buildings surrounding the site are primarily clad in either limestone or brick. The use of a limestone colored brick combines these two materials while creating the opportunity to use a material in an uncommon way. Moving to the first, or the main level, which is the middle level of this building, the program is divided by a central entry axis. This axis can be accessed from either Missouri Street to the west or Ohio Street to the east. The Ohio Street entrance is accessible via an ADA bridge that spans over the sunken play area. This bridge mitigates the elevation change between Ohio Street and the entry vestibule, which is approximately 3 feet, with an interior ramp going up another 1.5 feet to the main level. The Missouri Street entrance is accessible from grade with an interior ramp going down approximately 1.5 feet to the main level. After entry east or west, visitors will immediately encounter the 180-degree reception desk. To the south of this desk is the administrative block, and to the north is the creative block, with spaces for both age groups as well as the central stair and elevator. The visual connection between the creative room and the makerspace is a notable element because other than the gym, it is the only shared space between age groups. Another notable element is the exterior path south of the Boys and Girls Club, which is used to maintain a connection between Missouri Street and Ohio Street. The lower level is exclusively intended for the younger age group, ages 5 to 11. Since this level is primarily below grade, a sunken outdoor play area was carved out to the south for daylight. To bring daylight into the northern half of the lower level, a skylight was added over the main stair along the west wall of Playroom 2. The playrooms are contained to the western third of the plan to limit the amount of noise that reaches the quiet room and the classroom. Built-in cubbies serve as a buffer between the interior programmatic elements and the outdoor play area while also concealing some structure. And then going up to the upper level, this level is mainly for the older age groups. 2 rooms, in particular, the teaching kitchen and the active room, intersect with the gym or multi-purpose room in plan. This multi-purpose room, which is for all age groups, is the translucent cube from the partie. It is sized to accommodate an elementary school basketball court with a 5-foot buffer around the perimeter. While the primary function of this room is for indoor play, it also acts as a dining and performance area. And then this is just an interior shot of the gym, sort of showing off the structure and the modular bays it creates. So from the exterior brick to the tectonic structural bays of the translucent cube to the retaining wall of the sunken courtyard, modularity runs throughout this project. There are 3 distinct brick patterns used to illuminate this while also attempting to defamiliarize people with this common material. The protruding header pattern, which you can see here, is used whenever mass is taken away from the main stereoatomic volume. The screen pattern, which is on the west and east elevation, is used to bring in some unique dynamic daylight while also distinguishing the entries from the rest of the building. And then a smooth brick pattern is used pretty much everywhere else. And now going through some sections. This is a cross section going through the main elevator shaft to sort of show the relationship between the volume of the gym and the skylight of above the main entry, the main stair. And another notable element would be the sort of tapered effect created by pulling these walls back to allow additional light into the lower level. This is a longitudinal section going through the main entry axis, really highlighting the the slight slope between the change in grade from Missouri Street to Ohio Street, and also kind of showing some interior moves with built-in furniture to mitigate some of these more awkward post locations. And then this is a section going through the interior bridge that connects the makerspace to the creative room. Beyond that bridge, there's a living wall, which is getting light from the skylight above. And then a section perspective, which is essentially cut from the same spot, only looking the other direction, highlighting the light well and the stair, again, showing that connection between the creative room and the makerspace, the creative room being for kids, this for teens, as well as sort of the language of cantilevering with these stair treads cantilevering from this elevator shaft. And then finally the translucent skin, allowing people from the exterior to get an idea of what's going on inside of this gym. And then for the structure of the translucent cube, I have a little 5-part diagram here. The first drawing just shows the posts, girders, and beams, but which support the majority of.
Please.
Sorry?
If you can wrap it up, please.
Okay. And then we have a girder truss wall, which supports the cantilever. And then pulling from the structure of that girder truss wall, we have more trusses that create a sawtooth roof pattern to further push the industrial language, with infill panels that control daylight and reduce glare, unified with a polycarbonate skin. And I won't get into this, I guess. There's a wall section going through this wall here. Thank you.
Matt, technically and organizationally, there's some really cool things going on here. Again, it has a nice way of translating with the massing between the 1-story, 2-story volumes of the adjacent buildings. I like the contextual study that you did at the beginning to get a sense of how you were coming up with that. And you know, I get what you're saying on the buff brick. I don't know if it would have been better with limestone, but I could be sold on that. I know you're trying to, work between the two materials with that. I think that you could have, in the narrative, given it more of a experiential theme as the children. There were 2 renderings, I think, that incorporated kids and how they would experience the space, but there's not a lot of color and things like that that show how the kids would be experiencing it. So, and that comes into play. You can have one dialogue when you're presenting to other architects, but when you get out on the real world, you got to really change that whole approach to presentation, and really connect with the client and how they see it, and really, focus your presentation to be all about that. And you might have your idea about the architecture, but when you're talking to the client, they don't care about half the things you say, actually. Anyway, I'll let Nick jump in.
Yeah, I agree with Tim. I really liked your contextual study looking at the agricultural industrial buildings versus those Main Street buildings, and how you tied that into the language of your 2 volumes. You described the massing as a colliding of 2 volumes, which I think is a great simple concept for a building. And I think just being able to have that one sentence that describes how you organized those 2 different ideas that you opened up with, that's the perfect way that someone immediately gets and understands what you're talking about, and then they see the building like, yeah, I see those two boxes colliding. One thing I think that could make it stronger, I don't know if you have an axon view anywhere, but there's a purity at the street level of those two boxes that holds pretty well, though as you go around the building, I wanted to see, and you can see it in plan if you go to your second level floor plan.
This level or the gym?
The gym level, sorry. So you kind of see on the east side, you lose the purity of that lower level. I think there's some massaging you could do to rein in some of that program so it either aligns with that footprint perimeter of the lower brick buff colored volume, or make it align with the upper volume. But right now it seems like you're trying to fight it to try to make the space size that's required work, when I think you could do a little more massaging to really clarify that idea all the way around the building, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally.
Let's see, what else did I have here?
I thought the way you organize the spaces to have observation of not only the front door but the back door on that first level, and translated the elevational change was a really cool way to organize it.
I agreed. I wanted to see you pull that reception back so there'd be a clear path all the way through, and the reception didn't get in the way. So yeah, if you go to your first level floor plan, I think shows that.
Wrong way.
And maybe, and you can tell me if that was a kind of a security
Yeah.
move.
That was the idea, that
Okay.
people would have to encounter the reception desk first.
And I think you could play it either way, so long as there's some sort of control of that. But yeah, organizing that main circulation path through the middle there, I think worked really well.
Mm-hmm.
Your sections, your main section, that one you were talking about where you were looking at the living wall, I think just as you talk about it and you try to emphasize certain qualities of your drawings, I would look at trying to emphasize those points on the drawing itself, so we don't have to try to figure out what the most important parts of the drawings are. Like just as simple as giving a green hue to the green wall, so we understand right away this is something special. Let's understand how this relates to the whole. The articulation of the brick, I really appreciated. I think you made the right move by doing brick instead of limestone, because it feels like a kind of a more contemporary abstracted version of that kind of the randomness you get from limestone, stacked limestone. I'm curious, and maybe it was just because they created the right amount of texture you wanted, but I was curious the different types of brick detailing you chose. Was there a reason for those specific details or specific coursing patterns that you used?
Yeah, it started with like a Flemish bond, but then I felt like the screen needed more light, so it like kind of doubled up everything. And then there was this idea of using like a single material in different ways to make kids, for example, like curious about something that they otherwise feel like they might understand.
Well, don't make them too curious. They'll try to start climbing the facade.
Yeah.
When you go around underneath the building, I'm not saying it's impossible, but I question the doability of the detail of basically hanging the brick off the ceiling. That's going to be a pretty tough one to do. Like I said, it's not impossible, but to get that done well, I think is going to cost you more money than you probably want to spend on that detail, when you could put it elsewhere for more public spaces that are going to be experienced by more people. The structure here, I think, probably is a little skinny. those columns holding up your gym mass. Now maybe most of that load is being taken by the trusses you have up top and pulled back to the main structure on the west side of the block. But I think you're probably going to want a little more beefy structure there just for the sake of holding the building up. I was curious about this crib wall you had. I started to think maybe this was an image you didn't quite get to finishing, and that was supposed to be like that gets all grown in with vegetation and stuff. But right now, it almost looks like a safety hazard for these kids playing down here on the playground.
Yeah, that was the idea, that it would be all green.
I think spatially that's a good, I mean, to bring light that deep into your building is a good choice. And I think trying to make usable space there is the right instinct. Spatially, I thought this move was really strong. And then also the move you made inside with the main stairway and the green wall behind it, that multi-story high atrium. That was a nice spatial move too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I liked how you hid your the sawtooth of the skylights as well. I mean, typically I would say you want to show those off so people kind of understand what your building's doing as they walk up to it, but it played well to your concept and helped simplify the massing to cover it up the way you did. I just looking at in section here, I was wondering how you were going to make drainage work at the base of each of the sawtooths as you covered up, because you likely without any sloping from the middle, you're going to have to do some internal draining or internal drainage in that gym. But just a technical thing. And then out of curiosity, what was the thought that went into the orientation that you faced those sawtooths?
They're facing west, so I thought the majority of the time kids will be at a Boys and Girls Club, will be after school, so it's capturing the light near the end of the day. And also it's the shorter span, so it was either east or west.
Yeah, going forward with that mass, I think there's an opportunity here for some night renders that you could do to just kind of show that. I mean, this thing is going to be this glowing box and be a beacon for the downtown. I think that'd be a important image to show as you move this towards your portfolio and things like that. So.
Yeah, Matt, I think you did a really nice job with your initial concept and your initial party kind of carrying through the entire project with the simplicity of the 2 volumes. And those diagrams really show that well, how you kind of carried that through the entire project. So yeah, nice job.
Thanks.
I like your stair detailing too that we see in this image. One way to push this forward as well, I'd start to consider what happens down at that lowest level. Right now, it looks like you have a head knocker situation. So what do you do underneath that mid-level landing at level 1? Either are you putting some sort of program function there, whether it's storage or something that a kid could crawl into, or is it just simply you're taking your detailing of that cable all the way down? I don't know, but maybe just another thing to look at pushing forward as you move on from this.
I think detailing in general was a strong suit. Your wall section started to show a believability that, well, and those gym diagrams too, for that matter.
Mm-hmm.
And you clearly have skills with your rendering programs as well. I think piggybacking off what Tim said earlier, I think just adding a little more life to some of those images would help. Whether it's adding more entourage or people like working on some of those activities that are going on in those spaces. I don't know, but I think you definitely have the skills. So another way to push those forward too.
Yeah, it's great work.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Matt.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
Jo Beth, are you ready?
Yes. All right. Good afternoon. I am Jo Beth Hancock, representing Professor Jonathan Desi Olive's studio, and this is my proposal for the Boys and Girls Club of Alma, Kansas. The design process began with consideration for the site and its position in downtown Alma. The site plan shows the downtown and Main Street areas to the west here, and a community park and pool to the east, where the Boys and Girls Club in the middle must provide a link between the two distinct areas. A series of low-rise stone buildings lined the downtown street, and it was important to create a building that would mesh with the existing atmosphere while contributing something new and innovative. The west facade bridges the gap between the surrounding buildings by continuing the existing plane through a series of fins reminiscent of the swaying grasses of the Flint Hills, shifting upwards at the north end to indicate an entry. The main floor of the club is divided into three main programmatic blocks: an area for children, an area for teens, and a shared gym space. A portion of the children's bar is carved back to create a recessed entry with space for bike racks. On the east side of the building, the gym block expands upward and shrinks away from the edges of the site to allow for an exterior garden and play space. This area provides a secluded place for kids to study and play while maintaining strong connections to the club's interior and to the park across the street. Near the center of the building, the teaching kitchen expands to double height and becomes an important focal point in the building. The kitchen was a required element of the program, though I wanted to expand on it to create an environment with learning experiences centered around food. Seen in the center here, the kitchen becomes a space where not only can children and teens learn about cooking and making healthy choices, but they can learn through the care of the garden outside and by using food as a means of exploring science, technology, engineering, and math. Younger kids can participate in food-related crafts and simpler experiments such as making s'mores in a box with aluminum foil, while teens can engage in more difficult experiments like generating electricity with potatoes or creating soda rockets. In plan, the kitchen has a direct connection to the teen lab and experiment space, as well as to the gym, with a more indirect connection to the children's bar on the north, always allowing food to remain a part of the experience at the Boys and Girls Club. On the second floor, there is additional teen space with an administrative wing above the children's spaces. A main staircase and elevator are located here near the entry with fire stairs in the corners of the building. In plan, a teen lounge space with individual study rooms and the administrative office bar on the north create the second floor, all with views back to the kitchen in the center below. Again in section, the kitchen is directly connected to the lab space here, as well as the teen lounge on the second floor where teens can overlook the kitchen from below. Similarly, the administration area also has a view down to the kitchen space. The visual connection continues from the kitchen through the gym, which is sunk into a lower level of the site to address the slope, and out to the garden and park beyond. Now, the building structural system is created through configurations of a branching column which emerged from my textile explorations at the beginning of the semester. Professor Desi Olive's studio spent about a week and a half of a 3-week farmers market project generating and analyzing textiles, with consideration for the figures and configurations involved in pattern making and how these methods of creation and discovery can be translated into an architectural design. I chose to explore textiles through knitting, which ultimately led me to discover an X figure and a semi-ellipse figure. I found that these figures can experience merging, accumulating, and swelling in a variety of ways. The farmers market project required these figures and rules to be applied in new ways, and I used the rules to manipulate the X figure into a base geometry to organize the market stalls. This organization led to the creation and placement of a branching column that fundamentally became a figure itself, which I have continued to analyze and develop in the Boys and Girls Club. And these quick renderings show the large branching column supporting a roof plate in the market and the beginning of a shading system I've continued to develop as well. Similar to the textile figures,
A single branching column can be manipulated and configured in many ways. The branches of a single column can join with those around it to create a cube module. The elements in the module can be scaled and stretched to act more like a long span system and to indicate a hierarchy among the structural elements. The module and its variations can join together to create a structural system that allows for hierarchy and diversity among the spaces while providing an element of unity throughout the building. In section, you can see the expansion of the structural system to create the long span over the gym here, as well as on a smaller scale to create the base for program here. Similarly, in this view of the children's play area, it shows the hierarchy between the square base here for circulation and again the elongated base for program. Also, the diagonal branches of the module can be pushed down to allow for skylights. Here in the teen space on the second floor, the downward pointing branches create north-facing skylights that generate a pleasant, inviting environment for playing games, lounging, or studying. The skylights and the downward pointing branches can be seen clearly here in section, as well as they are used in several spaces throughout the building. Finally, an exterior shading system emerged from the manipulation of the branches that would poke out of the building. These branches are stretched outward and folded down to generate the support elements of the shading system. In the gym, two sides are enclosed by glass curtain walls and variations of the shading system. The main V shapes are the extensions of the branches, while thinner fins fan between them. And these variations in the system allow for the reinforcement of the connection between the park, the garden, through the gym, and ultimately back to the teaching kitchen in the center. The wall section of the gym again shows the glass curtain wall system with the timber shading outside that creates dynamic experiences for both the interior and the exterior. The combination of the shading system, the north-facing skylights, and a south-facing clear story all allow for a variety of lighting conditions appropriate for the corresponding spaces inside. A typical wall section indicates the interior conditions on the west side of the building, where the facade is more solid with punched openings, where the shading system outside, the shading fins outside become farther apart. Overall, the design of the Boys and Girls Club aims to create a variety of spaces with dynamic qualities that can be enjoyed by children, teens, and adults alike, where the connections to the adjacent park, the downtown streetscape, and the character of the Flint Hills allow the building to truly become a part of the Alma community. Thank you.
Thank you. Tim, you want to go first? Or you want me to go?
Well, I can go. Joe Beth, I appreciate how you're pushing the boundaries with the exterior of this. And now I get it with the grass is swaying in the winds. So you're pushing the boundaries enough that it gives us some areas to pick on, but only because it's harder to resolve something that's more complex like this. And one of them is that first, the whole structure you've maniacally figured out every little bit of it down to having this grid and everything, but then that northernmost bay is different than the others, and it feels like it created a challenge for you here in resolving the north facade a little bit, in that one bay is wider, and on the south or on the east side of the facade of the gymnasium, it almost feels more resolved there with the columns coming down between the bays. Maybe just that one move of extending the column down could have helped the other side, the west side. But it's a great exploration of what you can do and a creative way to, diffuse the sunlight. And I haven't seen anything like it. So I like it. I kind of like it. And what else did I have? You can jump in there if you want, Nick.
Yeah, I just appreciated the fact that you just went all in on this really bold idea, and you didn't stop at just having this texture on the facade and having a reason for it. you took us all the way through it from the concept to the construction, and then showed us all the different variations of the structural module that could be used to reflect that idea. So I thought that was really successful in how you did that. When I first looked at it, my first question was, what is that pattern on the facade? But when you say it's, when you talked about the swaying grass and the Flint Hills, it makes perfect sense. One question I had was, I don't know if you know the artist Ned Kahn. I was wondering if there's some way to incorporate, he does a lot of kinetic art on buildings, some way to incorporate some sort of kinetic movement on the facade itself. So those pieces of grass, those pieces of wood could actually move either from mechanics in the building or some sort of respond to the wind, just like the grass does. Maybe an idea you could take forward. But yeah, I was as you went through it, I've always wondered what would it look like if the Gothic style just stuck with us and got modernized. And I think this is a perfect version of like a modern Gothic structure. It's very, very beautiful. The way you show the wood detailing is very nice too. One thing that I think we always forget as we do renders of wood is it's great seeing it in this context. I think it's always important too to show what's this look like when it's 10 years down the road, and it's very hard to keep wood this color as it's sitting in the sun. And so I think incorporating as you move forward, think about how this building acts through time, and what this is going to look like as that wood silvers or whatever species it is. Look at how that wood ages, because it does affect the look and feel of the building, and it's not necessarily negative. It's just something to consider, and something as you talk with clients and in the future, something you'll need to make clients aware of is that material isn't static. It will change as well, and knowing that's going to happen allows you to celebrate that even better. So.
Yeah, I thought, I appreciated the analysis of all those different bays of the structure, but the north-facing skylights could be problematic as far as how you get the water out of there. But one of the things when you started going through the narrative and you start seeing the sections of the building, the structure is so pronounced and unique. As you were going through the story, I was wondering, so how did she decide on the structure? How did she decide on the structure? And then that didn't really come into the narrative until about 2/3 or 3/4 of the way through. And I wonder if it could have been somehow introduced earlier in the narrative or something, or I'm not sure how you could have done that, but it might have resolved the story sooner. Sometimes it's good to leave everybody in suspense, but.
Yeah, can you go back to those sections?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the line weight quality is beautiful. I think you definitely understand how to make how to give importance to certain aspects of your section drawing. One thing I think it would help if you added maybe the next section after this, it shows it a little better. Yeah, this one and the next one, but you can kind of see how you have a very unique custom structural system, and then within your space is very standard rectilinear, either cubbies or casework and things. And I'd like to see if there's a way to take that a step further and integrate those things a little more, whether it's customizing your casework to feel like it really fits into those angled structural modules, or look at partitioning some of those areas off in a way that makes everything feel cohesive. If you go to the next slide, I think you see that a little better in those kitchen areas where you see the casework just kind of hanging out in the middle, the upper cabinets. Maybe just look at what happens when those two different things interface, the structure and your built-ins. On the keep getting it would be your west side. If you want to.
I was just going to say, when everything else is so unique, it's a matter of how far you take that. You know, then does everything become unique? And so you set yourself up for a challenge there.
Yeah, and we get you only have a semester to do this, so you can't get everything. On your west side, I was wondering if it'd be possible to get more of views into the building at the street level. You're fairly closed off, and maybe it's just the render, because I know you showed some images where from the interior view you're looking through those like blades of grass, piece of wood, and you can see out just fine. But as you're walking by on the exterior, it does feel fairly solid at street level, and I'd encourage you to find ways to manipulate that a little bit, just to make the building feel a little more welcoming at that pedestrian level. And then you had the images of the farmers market structures. I thought those were really compelling and really successful. And I think finding a way to incorporate those at grade somewhere on your site, whether it's manipulating your mass to create a passageway between Missouri Street and the pool, or putting them on the east side near the gardens. It's another way to extend that structural module you've created for the building and show another way it can be used. I think it's done very well, and it because it's such a beautiful form, it stands so well on its own that I think could benefit you to incorporate those somewhere on the site as well.
Okay, yeah.
I might jump in here on the gymnasium. I really like where you placed it, how it mediates the difference between street level and park level, and doing this sort of raised mezzanine around the gym. I think that's right. That's pretty successful. Am I right that you had an idea that there could be big doors that open?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. And see, I find that to be a really compelling idea too. I mean, the Kansas climate doesn't invite that very often, but I think that could be a pretty cool interactive space if there is nice times where those doors can be open. It makes me wonder if this exterior space wants to be paved instead of grass, so that there could be complementary, you could just take your game right outside or something, or maybe it wants to be grass. I don't know, but that's, I mean, the idea of having some gardens out there is pretty compelling as well. It's kind of that spatial extension idea. What happens inside and how does it relate outside?
Yeah, it might just be part of the rendering technique there. The grass seems to have a really deep texture to it, or something that makes it look less usable than maybe it would be.
Okay.
Oh, sure. So like a manicured lawn would be, yeah, I see what you're saying.
I agree with Aaron, what you were saying about how you oriented the gym, and I like that it creates a connection to that kind of extension of the recreational corridor between the gym and the pool. I think that you could have some nice interplay there between activities. I was curious, is there a reason you went with a half court basketball court versus a full court? Was there a requirement for that, or?
I think it's like maybe halfway or a little before. Our professor kind of decided that we didn't need to have the full court gym if we could justify it, and I found it better to have the exterior space as an option instead of having the full court gym that just took up the whole area of the site.
I think overall, I think you took on a very bold idea and ran with it, and I think you were successful with your approach. Yeah, definitely commend you on taking on a challenge here. It's a lot more difficult to try to create something new than it is to sort of manipulate a kit of parts that you're already familiar with. So kudos to you.
Thank you, Joe Beth.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jo Beth. We next have Abigail. There she is. You might need to turn your volume up a bit. And share your screen.
Okay. Hi there. I'm Abigail Hutchinson, and this is my design for the Alma Boys and Girls Club. So Alma, Kansas is part of a string of towns along the Native Stone Scenic Drive. And like many small towns in Kansas, its downtown is still lined with historical limestone buildings made of blocks that were once hauled to the site with wagons and later put into place with ropes. So the significance of stone in this area is what drives the inspiration for this design. So with this in mind, I began to study Peter Zumthor's Thermal Valves project in Switzerland. And Zumthor's Thermal Valves also has a site with strong ties to the quality of stone quarried in the nearby area, where the sensory experiences of the Valser quartzite slabs are used with grace, dignity, and respect. The spatial diagram of the thermal valves makes up several clusters through which the circulation weaves, and a centralized cherished pool space in which the mass objects are set into and around. So the existing site has a slope of 6 feet from the west to the east, which has been made into a sort of plinth from which we will carve our most cherished space. Just like Zumthor's pool space, in this design, the multi-use space is embedded into the site, bringing the street to the park in the rear. The multi-use space becomes subtly defined by the base plane change, and from here, the masses can be composed. I then created a composition of mass objects that share proportion to the site and organized them into clusters according to their program. The cluster diagram of valves and this project allows for flexibility, and moving around the mass means discovery while still keeping order and security. The following diagram shows the composition of the thermal valves and the Alma Boys and Girls Club side by side. And the composition shows a sort of spatial intimacy that comes with circulating between the masses, and how both the semi-private spaces and private spaces begin to define the edges of the most cherished space in the center. The next move in this design is to carve each mass so that each one has its own moment of light in regard to its function. Each one is to have its own spatial quality and diversity of experience, making it special. A unifying roof is inserted to unite the mass and create a singular building. And then 2 more masses are created within this roof, but these objects are specifically about carving for light and will provide for a diversity of experience to that multi-use space below. In this visual of the multi-use space, we can start to see how mass and light are working together to make for a space that feels very secure, yet also dynamic and exploratory. In the ground floor plan, the composition of the mass is more apparent. Indicated in the purple is the teens cluster, and the administrative cluster is in the blue. This is where kids enter the space to check in, and the private offices, staff break area, conference room, reception, and open office are all located in this front administrative cluster. They have visibility and control over who exactly enters the space from there. After entering the building, the circulation moves in and along the edge of this large administrative mass here, and then from there you can climb down into the landscape blocks and make discoveries about them at their entries. Each one is unique, and some are even open to the sky above. The spaces inside of each mass feel intimate and controlled, and each age group gets a special experience with the outside while still being safe within the building. The teens cluster consists of an open air courtyard, which was pictured previously, the study resource space here. The teens commons is easily accessible from the multi-use space with the 6 through 12 restrooms directly adjacent, and the teaching kitchen serves the south edge of the multi-use space here. On the second floor, the circulation is similar, but instead of climbing down and around, you climb up and circulate between the masses on this mezzanine with a view to the multi-use space below. Here in this visual, we can see again how this design is using mass, materiality, and program are working together to make spaces that are more intimate and have a unique relationship with light. On the second floor, the clusters repeat with the K through 5 spaces indicated in the pink and the outdoor play space in green. The K through 5 study is located here, a view down to the teens courtyard from above here, the outdoor play space here in the green, and the children's indoor play space here with the K through 5 restrooms directly adjacent and the seating area along the south edge here with the creative block here, which I'll speak to in just a moment. So this visual showcases the intimacy of the space through consideration of human scale and the visual connection to the multi-use space down below. And the cluster diagram is something that allows for more intentional spaces that act as sort of pods that are able to control their circle of influence. And these intentional spaces allow staff and members to be able to focus on tasks that are fundamentally within their control. So the capacity to be proactive is increased with more focused and intimate space. The second floor contains a hybrid of creative and administrative space here. Boys and girls clubs across the nation are striving to meet the needs of their children, and their mission revolves around this idea of greatness, where kids are able to be the best versions of themselves. Wabunsee County has a demand for emotional and health support assistance for children in the age groups that are typically served in a Boys and Girls Club. And they actually have about 5 times the national average for suicide, likely due to cyberbullying. So for many kids, this idea of greatness cannot be achieved because of boundaries created by mental illness or distress. Previous traumas without the knowledge of healthy coping skills can have a serious impact on the well-being of the child, especially if they're faced with dealing with it on their own. So this design proposes an additional block of program within the creative space in which mental health professionals can hold confidential sessions when needed, and art therapy professionals can use the process of self-expression to help kids understand their emotional conflicts. And in a rural town like Alma, Kansas, a resource such as this is very valuable and can provide a needed service for little to no cost at all. Because of the spatial individuality, the section becomes very dynamic, with each space being capable of concentrating on its own circle of influence. In the long section, we see a cut through the administrative mass here with that creative block above, and then the floor level change to the embedded multi-use space with the 2 objects as skylights above. And then finally through the teens commons with the kids play area above that. A cut through the short length of the building also shows the spatial individuality with the kitchen mass here and the seating area above. And then the teen study resource space and the kids outdoor play area. And between them again is the multi-use space with that object of light directly above. And moments taking place in these spaces are able to be intentional and just like their spatial qualities, unique. So the proposed elevation along Missouri Street appears as a simple 2-story building where the stone mass becomes expressed through the more tectonic parts of the facade. And the blocks are pushed forward through the facade. And in doing so, they make narrow apertures to let additional light into the more private office spaces beyond. The massive quality of the limestone is an abstract representation of the history tied to the stone in the town, and its scale is also cohesive with the smaller streetscape of Alma. So overall, this design uses mass, program, materiality, and light to create spaces with intimate and controlled moments. It becomes a place of solidity and quite literally a rock in which kids can lean on. The solidity of its form pays homage to the history of limestone in Alma, and its spaces allow for moments of focus where each child's needs can be met. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nick, you want to go?
Sure. Yeah, I think this is a really nice project. I'm gonna gravitate towards any project that starts using the Peter Zumthor bathhouse as a precedent. It's I think it's one of the best buildings in the world. And if you ever get a chance to go there, I highly recommend it. You'll remember it for the rest of your life. But I thought you were really successful in, one thing that's hard, I think, as a student, and even as you get into the profession, is taking a precedent and translating it into the idea that worked with your project. I think you've done that very successfully here. One thing I appreciated is that the relationship between your solid volumes and the translucent spaces. You didn't lose the fact that you needed to create some sort of relief between those different material expressions to let that idea play through. And I thought that worked really well in your renders. I don't know if you could click back to your, I think, second to last slide or last slide of some of those rendered images. But yeah, just creating that relief really starts to accentuate those different volumes. I thought you did a great job there. Your renders were great too. It just communicating the experience inside this space, giving it some life, and kind of showing the relationship of all the spaces to each other. One thing I wanted to see, and if you ever go to the bathhouse in Valls, you'll notice that no matter where you are, the circulation of the space is always very prevalent, and you understand how to get through the building. One thing that you've done here is you've used those solid volumes for concealing and kind of hugging major program spaces, but then you also hid your vertical circulation in there as well. I would probably recommend to pull the circulation components out of those solid volumes so they're more visually available to a user walking into the building. But as far as how you incorporated the other program spaces into those masses, I think was very successful. But knowing how to move through a building, especially a community center with as a small child, I think it'll make it a little more successful. I was curious how you thought about with burying your gym in the middle of the space. You know, I agree it's kind of the centerpiece of the program here. How do you deal with acoustics as they travel through the space? Because the gym can be a very loud space. I see you can control that a little bit to the office area to the west as we're looking at that northern or the upper left image. But I would encourage you to consider more how you control those acoustics, because it looks like some of those spaces on the upper level where you might want more of a quiet solace type of experience is still open acoustically to that space, and you might want to consider closing some of that off. But your handle on how to play with daylight and how it and material tone and how a lighter tone is going to make for a lighter feeling space, especially in a building with as heavy elements as you used, I think is very strong. So yeah, great job.
Yeah, I think from the start, you went in with a really strong and unique concept that embraced the materiality of the surrounding context, the native limestone, and really appreciated that. I think, you know, I start to think of how we could have developed it more, and how do those volumes express themselves as they pierce through level to level. I saw it it's in the upper left hand image here. You start to show daylight, I think it is, sneaking through alongside the edge of the ceiling plane there, as if it's separated, and maybe there's opportunities for even more of that to express that those masses do more than go level to level. So I think you're starting to do it, and with more time to evolve the concept, maybe that could have rang through even more. So yeah, love the idea of starting with the precedent of the baths and focusing on the materiality of the limestone.
And one thing, looking at this image here of the multi-use space, I think it would help to, I know it's not typical, but it's not unusual to have the athletic surface completely different color than the stone, to just give you a contrast visually between materials. Right now they kind of feel like they muddy with each other. So that's just a small thing. Could you go to your floor plans? Had a few comments there as well. Yeah, the floor plans definitely speak to the monumentality of the stone. I do question what you're actually going to be putting within those walls. I mean, likely you're not going to have those walls of solid stone. So as you take this forward, I think to give a little more, show a little more understanding of how the building works, it might be worth trying to look at incorporating mechanical chases and things into these thickened walls to show that, yeah, these are thick walls, and to the user, they have that feel, but they're also functional as well. And just that next step to take it towards a little more reality. Your west elevation too. I was wondering. It seems it's almost there. I think conceptually it misses a little bit with the relief at the center of the building, where it looks like it should be 2 stone volumes broken by your infill zipper material that you're using elsewhere, the glass, but you do it with stone. I'm wondering if you tried breaking those volumes apart with glass. It just seems right now the materiality seems a little inconsistent with what you're doing elsewhere. Again, a very small thing, but I think it would help break down the massiveness of that wall. And again, one thing I think would help, I haven't seen it yet in a project, but I think yours would relate really well to it, would be a diagram that shows how the proportions of these volumes along your storefront relate to proportions throughout that main street, just to help create a argument. Typically when you're presenting to a city or a zoning commission, they like to see that you're creating harmonious context with the urban area that you're building in. And I think that would add that second level of understanding and grasp of the area if you started to incorporate how this does relate to the size and proportions of buildings around you.
Yeah, Abigail, I think you did a really good job with the proportions of the spaces. That really comes through in those sections with the varying thicknesses that Nick kind of alluded to, if you think on how you can use that further. But I think the proportions of the project really come through in those sections. So yeah, nice job.
Yeah, I was wondering about the precedent works super well in the Swiss Alps. Can you take it and put it on, small town Main Street? I think you can. I think I buy that west elevation, but that was one that I was wondering how that would translate. You totally took that precedent. It shows through the project, and I thought you were really thoughtful about how the masses play with each other, how light works with the masses. So you were a quick study. Good job on that.
Mm-hmm. Your graphics are beautiful too. There's a nice like softness and lightness to the building, even though the concept's so heavy. I really appreciated that kind of post-digital style that you use. It worked out really well for you.
Mm-hmm.
Earlier we were talking about this gym and sound isolation. That is a head scratcher. I actually think I like what you've done with the gym so much that maybe it's not how we traditionally think about a gym, where there's like, a loud game happening in there and then you want quiet. Maybe that's not the case. Maybe it's like it really is a multi-purpose space. And if something's happening in there, then all the, everyone's engaged in it. Mm-hmm. And if that's the case, I don't know that acoustic isolation would be quite as big a deal. I mean, I guess what I'm trying to say is you kind of sold me on the idea that this is more than just a gym. It's a space where it's just the central activity space.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you guys for your feedback. I think one thing I tried to consider was to sort of extrovert in the orientation of the spaces around that multi-space to extrovert them, so that kind of help mitigate that. But again, the commons area kept open so that you could easily circulate between those multi-space and the commons area. That's pretty much how I use it. But that is really good.
One other small functional thing that I noticed too, if you go back to your floor plan on level 1, I don't know if you've looked at trying to connect all your office space and conference room through its own circulation route. So someone in the main office area doesn't have to go out into the public corridor to go down to the conference room or lounge. It's just kind of flows through one single office suite. Not a huge thing, but just had it in my notes.
Yeah, very exciting to, to think about how you could texture the outside of the blocks versus the inside of the blocks as far as the stone goes, and differentiate what's carved versus what's on the outside. All kinds of opportunities here to dig in and really, develop the detailing of it.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I'd get excited about going here if I was a kid.
Yeah.
And just like right here in this plan, you took the opportunity to take those 4 feet of elevation change and create just 2 tiers of seating.
Mm-hmm.
Just a little move like that. That's great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and your ramping that you have in there for accessibility, sometimes that stuff can feel tacked on, and this feels just nicely integrated. It doesn't seem like it's a afterthought. So good job getting that integrated up front.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Abby, thank you so much.
Thanks, Abigail.
Thanks.
Miss Amber, you're up next. Amber, you're mute. You need to start over. Sorry.
Sorry about that.
There
I'm
you
Amber, and this is my proposal for the Boys and Girls Club of Alma. My proposal centered on the idea of community. I focused on what a community is down to its core and how to represent that in space, form, and experience. Throughout this project, I began to understand community as not just a group of people, but a group of ideas, values, and aspirations. Wabunsee County, the area that this club would serve, is located southeast of Riley County. As an after-school program, the club would directly serve the kids from the surrounding schools, or about 1/5 of the county's population of roughly 7,000. Demographically, the people of this community are mostly white, with 6% living below the national poverty line. The site is located in the county's largest town of Alma, which has a population of around 800. For some background, the Boys and Girls Club is a nonprofit organization that is focused on uplifting young people and helping them reach their full potential. In a nonprofit, everything, every program, every decision, every event must relate back to the mission. In this proposal, I made sure the building also follows the mission. This is evident in 3 key ways: site specificity, impact, and vision. When understanding site specificity, it became apparent on our site visit to Alma that this project would need to blend into the context of this small but historically rich town. The historical buildings here, dating back to the 19th century, are built from local limestone and have a special presence within this community. Over the years, the function of these buildings has changed to fit Alma's changing needs, but have maintained the same architectural character and significance. In acknowledging this, I did not overshadow these historical buildings, but rather complemented them. My building implements some of the same material character while bringing an impression of progress. In a sense, I wanted to keep the history in the backseat of this design still there, but letting progress and potential drive the decisions. I capitalized on transparency, really trying to make sure that this building wasn't just about the community created within, but the entire community of Alma, because the mission reaches past the building itself.
So Amber,
yeah,
you're stuck on your first slide of the elevation.
I know.
Okay, You kept clicking, so I didn't know if you wanted it to move. So sorry.
The site is situated along Missouri Street, which is essentially the main street of Alma. In this urban context, it inhabits the space between two buildings, fronts a pedestrian sidewalk, and backs up to a private alley leading to Alma City Park. Throughout this project, I struggled with ensuring that by implementing a Boys and Girls Club into this communal ecosystem, I was enriching it and not disrupting it. I wanted to make sure that with this building, the mission of the Boys and Girls Club of America was upheld, especially because of the social impact on the community these clubs typically have. In order to create a piece of architecture that is an addition to a community, I needed to understand how the spaces the program called for would impact this community. I broke down the program into 4 spatial categories, inserted the program, related it back to the goals of the Boys and Girls Club, and finally related it to the impact it would have in Alma. This analysis emerged from asking the question of how to make the Boys and Girls Club of Alma truly of Alma. What spaces drove the mission? What architectural spaces and ideas drove the mission? How do I make the community of Alma stronger with one building, with one program, with one mission? The form developed from there, reacting to the needs and constraints of the site. Uniquely, because of the building situation between 2 party walls, light could only enter the building from the east, west, and above directions, which became a significant driver in the form of the building. The site also has a slope, which was negotiated through a series of architectural elements, such as amphitheaters, to create unique spaces that only this site could offer. Aligning with my intention of not disrupting the community, I simplistically designed the entry, which provided a modern feel and continuation of the urban edge. The final form offers a central opening that navigates past the masses of the program, which I chose to celebrate. In this diagram, you can begin to see how I've divided the spaces to relate back to the mission of the Boys and Girls Club. The 3 pillars of youth development dictate where the spaces occur within the building form, indicated by the mass divisions. Furthermore, you can see that I've exposed structure over the gym, expressing a more energetic environment. Through the circulation split, expressive structure again calls attention to the celebration of this space. One of my main goals of this design is to create vision. By creating open space between the masses and the circulation, I'm creating visual access to every single space along the split, which allows people to witness what others are doing and see opportunity. In the ground floor plan, you can clearly see the split that I've introduced and how it allows members to view each other. On the right, you can see into the teaching kitchen and into the exterior play courtyard. Up the stairs is where the teen spaces and the administration offices exist. On the right, you can see into the gym from that central walkway, allowing members to see what others are doing and learn from them. Here's a rendering of the gym space where you can see the use of color and light to celebrate the circulation split. In the elevations, you can see how the building relates back to the context of simple, small town, 2-story Alma, again fitting within their existing community rather than disrupting it, but still pushing for architectural and social progress. The sections reveal how that circulation split continues all the way through the building, ensuring that there are views into every single space. You can also see how I've used light to activate and encourage interaction in the spaces, with the gym relying mostly on natural light and allowing the exterior play courtyard to be a source of light within the form of the building. And I'll conclude with a rendering looking down the circulation split, showing how light and color celebrate the experiential discovery process the Boys and Girls Club of Alma has. Thank you.
Thank you.
Amber, do you have maybe I missed it, but the patterning on the circulation split, the fenestration there, the patchwork, was there a basis of how you came up with that?
Yeah, so when I was first diagramming how I wanted to display the spaces, how I wanted them to be organized, I proportioned them with a series of squares and overlapped them to show how the spaces would interlock.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I appreciate all the diagramming of how the rationale of how you stepped through the process and figured out how you wanted to organize the space, how it was going to impact the community. That's very inspiring. And then the final assembly here, that I was worried that it would split the program, but somehow you've tied it all back together from west to east, and then with the program that's to the north and the program that's to the south, and use this this circulation link to bind it all together. And I imagine that could be this very, you know, filled with, like the commons, filled with kids, and a very celebrated space, well used space within the program. Nick, you got?
Yeah, can you go back to your massing diagrams that you had up at the front? I thought the way you opened with these, and maybe I'm biased because I just love diagrams like this, but I thought there was just a really strong clarity to the project. I mean, before you even got to the floor plans, you kind of already understood what you're going to be looking at. And then when floor plans came up, they just made sense instantly. So I thought these were really, really successful. One thing you did some amazing research with the demographics, and then tying that sort of same graphic style into your understanding of the program and how it related to the mission of the organization. I think it'd be great if you could tie that same level of graphic quality and color branding into your graphics here. So it'd be taking it one step further to show us how you've zoned the masses, and then so before we even see the floor plan, we understand how you've organized the building with those different uses. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because these are great diagrams, very simple, and they tell us a lot. I think if you tell us that one extra little bit of the story here, then when we get into the floor plans, it just becomes immediately clear where everything is and how it's all working together. So then if you go to your floor plan, yeah, I thought this was the organization of the building. Again, there's a very strong clarity for how you, and there's no question how you circulate. You have your main kind of it's almost like a main street through the building that separates the major functions. And what I liked about it is you can be anywhere along that and always feel like you're connected to any part of the building at any point. There's just a nice relationship to everything off the circulation core. You don't feel buried and have to go searching for some space elsewhere. Also, like I mentioned in the last project, I thought the way you incorporated your ADA ramping into your bleacher seating was really successful, especially when you show it in the render. You can barely even tell what's going on, but it does provide that benefit to the members of the community who have less ability to be mobile. So I think it's a huge plus to this project. On your approach to the building, in planning and massing, it's very clear how the circulation works. I wasn't as immediately clear on the entry to the space off of the main street. I think there could be a little more work calling out where that front door is, because the way the massing show it, you almost expect that you'd enter through that center bar, but you're actually entering just to the south of it. Into that glassy strip storefront window at the bottom. So I'm not saying that's the wrong place to enter, but maybe find a way to call that out a little more, so as you approach as a pedestrian, you know exactly where that front door is. Okay. And yeah, I agree with Tim. I really like that the patterning on the glass that not only is it very strong aesthetically, but again, it's just another indication of that very clear diagram that you've set up and how you organize the program.
And at the beginning, you started out with the purpose and the mission, which set the tone for the whole presentation, as did standing up. That can really activate the format of the presentation. So good job on all of those fronts.
Thank you.
Did you, in how you organize the massing, what made you choose which programs would go on which side of the space? Did everything kind of lay out because of the size of the gym, and it's got to be a certain size, or how did you choose the relationships between how different program spaces laid out?
That's how it started. When I put the gym down, I kind of started zoning the spaces like, okay, I need to put all of these on this side and all of these other spaces on this side. And it kind of just fell into place, dividing into the 3 pillars of youth development.
Mm-hmm.
And so being able to apply that further just made that concept stronger.
Mm-hmm. Cool. And then how about your structural approach to those like massive, I don't want to call them a massive truss, but it's like kind of your angled columns there through the middle. What made you choose that structural system?
Looking at a precedent and really liked how expressive it was. And since that's my most important expressive space, I knew I needed something a little more expressive than just straight columns. So I went with an abstracted truss.
And again, I appreciate also your elevations on Main Street showing, like we didn't see just the close up of the building, we saw the entire context of the Main Street. So we understood how those buildings related to the surroundings, which is great. And there's also not only do the size of the buildings relate well, but I think the articulation you put into each of the different masses relates well to the proportions of other buildings on the Main Street. I don't know if that was intentional, but it seems to work fairly well. So good work.
If it works, it was intentional.
Yeah.
It was a strong project, Amber. I really like it. In fact, your central circulation corridor was so compelling, I almost wanted that to be open to the street and open to the park on the other side. Now that doesn't work because you have to have a closed off building, but it's just an example of such a clear circulation idea that it gets the wheels turning on how it could be engaged by the pedestrian.
And all your study you did up front of the demographics, can you talk a little more in detail of how that informed your design decisions? I thought the work you did there was great. I don't know if that was a requirement for the project, but it definitely was a great way to open to tell the story of who might be using this space and your understanding of who you're serving. I thought that, yeah, really nice job there.
Yeah, I'm actually minoring in nonprofit leadership studies. So a lot of this research came from what I know about nonprofits and what I know about nonprofits entering communities. Mm-hmm. So I knew that I needed to thoroughly understand what a community is in order to build a building that fit into that community. So that's where a lot of that came from.
Cool. I like the way you used the graphics. It wasn't just like a Excel graph. It was very engaging as well. I wanted to understand what it was talking about. Unlike, you get presentations from people sometimes about finances and things, and it's just bars, and it's like, okay, next slide. But this was good. Thank you. And sorry, not to take up more time, but I also liked you addressing the mission of the organization and really using that to drive your narrative that you use to tell the story about your project. Especially from a client standpoint, that's something that they will latch on to. The more you can relate back to their needs, who they are, what they appreciate, what their concerns are, as you are talking about what the work you're doing for them, the more successful your argument for certain things is going to be, and the more successful the project will be too. And I think you nailed that. So nice job.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Oh, very impressive, Amber. Great job.
Thank you, Amber.
Yeah.
Jada?
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
So thank you for being here today. My name is Jada Rizak, and this is my proposal for the Boys and Girls Club of Alma, Kansas. So Alma's located in the Flint Hills. This Boys and Girls Club would be home to the kids in the elementary school and the high school in Alma, and also the kids from the middle school in Paxico, and the elementary school in Maple Hill, which is about 20 miles away. And Alma is about 30 miles southeast of Manhattan. So our site is located in between Missouri Street and Ohio Street, and so it reaches to both those facades. And an important aspect, when I did my site visit, I noticed this bus stop here. The bus came around the corner and parked, and all the kids got off and ran to this city park here and started playing. So based on that, the main entry for the kids would be off Ohio Street from that bus stop there. And then there's also a 6.5 foot slope on the site that goes down toward Ohio Street. And the lighting on the site is fairly bright in the morning and the afternoon. And then the surrounding buildings provide a nice shade to the site in the evening. So when thinking about what a Boys and Girls Club for the city of Alma should be, these different conceptual ideas came to mind and what those should embody. So this interlocking of their skills and their talents and their experiences all coming together. And then also they should be able to focus on themselves, but still engage with other groups of people. And then it should also feel safe and protected, but still connected to the outside world. And then also this idea of leaving something heavy behind and entering something light, and that feeling of relief and setting down those burdens. So then combining all of those, this main concept of the Boys and Girls Club being a safe and protected space for the kids to experience that interlocking of their talents and their skills and their qualities. So then taking that idea of interlocking, this was part of my process of finding a form to embody that. So I ultimately decided upon this form, which was best for the program as well as the concept of interlocking. So then I was able to make study model iterations. My first one focused on protecting that gym space in the middle. However, then I focused on celebrating the gym space while still protecting it. And then my third iteration, the orientation of the gym was actually rotated to further emphasize that interlocking that's happening. And then I was able to add details. And in my most recent study model iteration, I refined the proportions and the scaling to better fit that context of Alma. So then taking that program, the teens and the children's were placed into their program bar, 2 separate program bars. And then the gym was placed in the middle to interlock and connect the program bars. So then those program bars shifted to protect, and based on their program, they shifted. And then those program bars adapted to the site topography, and the volumetric qualities were determined. And then the entry thresholds were placed in the middle into that celebrated space, that gym space in the middle. And then finally, the exterior spaces were carved. So the 4 most important aspects of the kids and teens' lives are when they're studying and they're playing and they're socializing and they're being creative. So all 4 of those important aspects of their lives all share this commonality and this ultimate interlocking at that gym space. So that's the celebrated space. So it has this very tectonic express structure while it's being protected by these 2 stereotomic masses that hug and cradle and hold it. So then you're able to enter between the 2 masses. So this is a model photo of the entrance from Missouri Street. So you can read those 2 protective bars. And then another photo from Missouri Street, you can see that celebrated gym space with its express structure and its tectonic nature. And then coming from Ohio Street, this is the street that the kids and the teens would enter off of. So the side of the building is really activated for the pedestrian experience. So this park that exists to the east the landscape is pulled in and the building is pushed back. And then that glazing on the facade leads you toward that entry threshold. And then you're pulled in between the 2 masses there. So this Missouri Street elevation fits with the urban context of downtown Alma. So you can see that the Boys and Girls Club echoes the proportions of these historical buildings that surround it. So the dark blue lines are pulled from the Alma Antique Emporium, and then the light blue lines are pulled from the family-owned hardware store. So the Boys and Girls Club is really tied to the urban fabric of downtown Alma, and for years to come, it'll be rooted and grounded in that downtown Alma context. This is the Ohio Street elevation. So this is where the kids and the teens would, their main entry would be. And you can see once again that glazing that leads them into that celebrated space. So on the site plan, to reiterate the bus stop, they would come from, majority of them would come from the bus stop and come down Ohio Street and enter off Ohio Street adjacent to the park. But there's also an entrance off Missouri Street. So it's a more public entrance off Missouri Street as well. Programmatically, the teens are in the northernmost bar and the children are in the southernmost bar. And then they ultimately interlocked at that gym space there. And the administration exists in the middle and on the upper level as well. And circulation speaks the same language. So the private circulation is in the north bar and the southern bar. And then the semi-public and public circulation is in the middle and up into the administration area. So looking at the entry-level floor plan, the kids and teens would come down Ohio Street, and this park is pulled into the landscape here with this green softscape that it aligns with the glazing on the facade. And then you enter in between these two heavy masses, so you immediately feel protected as you enter. And then when you step into the foyer, there's this glazed wall, so you have this immediate visual connection into the celebrated space. And then if you're a teen, you would move up to the north, and if you're a child, you would come down to the south. But either way, the first space that you enter are these cubby areas. So you're allowed to immediately set down your burdens and set down what you're carrying. And some of these kids have come on a bus ride from up to 20 miles away. So allowing them to set down, relieve themselves of what they're carrying, and not only physically, but also mentally and emotionally, allows them to feel that relief when they step into the building. Also, this circulation that occurs on the side of the gym has this glazed walls to look in and have that visual connection into the celebrated space. So it creates a place of pause and a place of rest to have that visual connection. Also, the glazing along the facades speaks the same language, but in areas of more focus, it's inverse. So it's the same pattern, the light pattern that's coming through. However, it's inverse to allow for more focus, less distractions coming into areas that need to be a little quieter. So then here you can see how these spaces are interlocked through visual connection. So for example, the children's study resource, you can look through the glazing into the circulation space, through into the gym, and then all the way into the indoor play area and on through to the art and creative. So all these spaces are interlocked through that visual connection. The same thing happens from the exterior. You can see into the teen study resource area and through the kitchen, where you might see teens learning how to help cook healthy eating habits, and then look on into the gym. So all of these interlocking occurs through this visual connection in all these spaces. On the upper floor plan, this is where the administration is housed, as well as the teen and children's exterior spaces. And these bars are actually, they overhang and they interlock into the gym, and they have that connection into the gym. Not only into the gym, but also there's this moment where the children can look across and see the teens, and the teens can look across and see the children. And there's that inspiring visual connection that's happening there as well. So these sight lines are happening all throughout the building. So stepping into the reception area, this is that visual connection into the celebrated space, into the gym. And then if you're up in the teens exterior space, you are walking along this axis. However, you're still imposed upon the gym, and you're still connected to that celebrated space. And then as a child, you may be in the exterior play area, and there's this magical moment where you can look across and see the teens playing, and they have that connection in that sense. So this section shows some of the sectional qualities. This area of...
Speed up there, please.
Okay.
We're running out of time. Yep.
Okay. This area is lower, so it's more of an area of focus. However, this is a higher ceiling, so it's more of a high activity area. This space shows the slope on the site is addressed, and then once again, that repeating light pattern and the familiarity that occurs there. And then finally, once again, the tectonic express structure of the celebrated space that's surrounded by its protected masses, and that inspiring interlocking and visual connection that's occurring. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay.
And you checked a lot of boxes that we've talked about previously with your site analysis. You had the mission on the first slide, but you didn't talk about it. But it was there. So it was interesting that you picked up on that detail of how the kids arrived at the site and then designed the building to enhance that. your analysis and looking at how the daylight flows across the site. You know, your analysis of those abstract concepts and how what were you going to try to convey through the architecture and getting to the interlocking structure, or design iterations and everything. You showed a lot of process. In the real world, the clients may not need to see how all that sausage is made, but it's interesting to us. But the form development was interesting, and then how the gym almost becomes this, what would be the town square with all the other functions organized around it. Gave the whole thing a very nice organization. And then you started to get into the description, you know, talking about the kids as they arrive and dropping off their bags and how they're feeling at each step of their experience through the space can be very compelling to speak to that, as well as the architecture. When you're speaking to the clients, what they're feeling, what they're experiencing, all of those. And then thought the way you were considering those views across the sites and across functions could really enhance the experience of the space too. So good job of developing this.
Yeah, I want to first and foremost commend you on your physical models. They were great. I mean, I think, I can't remember if those are the first ones we've seen yet today, but do not give that up. I know it's easy to jump into the digital rendering softwares and things, but working with your hands and understanding how the different relationships between spaces just by modeling them in front of you, I think there's a huge value to that. You see things that you wouldn't otherwise see maybe on the computer screen, or even just sketching those things out. So really nice models. I liked how you also use concept models, not just understanding spaces, but trying to understand the user and kind of embedding their emotions, their thoughts and feelings, their experience into some pretty abstract forms, but still embodying those ideas. As Aaron was introducing Tim, talking about Tim's effort in empathy at our firm, I think you've shown that you have a really strong sense of empathizing with your users, just by talking about, like how you talked about people coming in here, leaving something heavy behind. You know, it pulls you in emotionally to the story that you're telling. I thought that was a really strong portion of your presentation. When you do that, I think you can also start to bring in precedents of writing and things that helps to emphasize those ideas. There's a story by Tim O'Brien called "The Things They Carried." I think really relates well to the work you're doing here, the ideas you're trying to get across, the human emotion of the user. That one's about the Vietnam War, but still it talks about the relationship between objects and the burdens that people have in their lives. And I think looking at how that relates back to your project, I think could add to your story, or enrich it in different ways. Your massing, if you want to go back to your massing images, as you started to model through those. Yeah, I thought this was a great way to sort of show how you walked us through your decision-making process. After number 3, I started getting a little queasy, but not in a bad way. Maybe because I'm just more of a simple form type of person, but I saw number 3 and I was like, oh man, that's a really clear, simple diagram. I love where that's going. And then you started to dissolve the shapes, and I wasn't sure where it was going until we got to the plans, and then it started making sense. Maybe from a diagrammatic standpoint, we don't need to see 4, 5, and 6 until we get into the plans. I think just showing your main concept was about interconnecting 2 separate ideas, and then also giving that safety to that celebrated main space. I think that's all you need to show when you're talking about concept. How the form develops from there can respond to what you do in plan that we see later. And that's not the case for every project, but I think for yours, I think it works better to see how you start to relate specific spaces to the form later on.
Yeah, that's all in the art of storytelling. The length of, no different than how long you make a sentence. You know, how long should this sentence have been? Maybe you could have cut a few words out of it on this page or this image. So,
but the work as you went on from here, the work you put into the physical modeling to show these same ideas, I thought also was very compelling. And yeah, it shows you don't need always to have a finished render to get across a compelling idea about how a space feels. You can sometimes get it just by using some cardboard and getting the forms modeled up. So I appreciated that a lot. Do you want to go into your floor plans real quick? Level 1 maybe. Oh yeah, sorry, before I get to that, I loved on your elevations, your street elevations, really taking those contextual lines, the facade seriously, and showing us how they informed your building. That was a nice touch.
I think I've seen Nick do a diagram just like that before.
Not this good though. On your floor plans, I would like to see a few more options to get from one side of the building to the other, from west to east. You show the visual connectivity and all the different ways you can see through the building, but it doesn't necessarily translate to physical circulation. Right now, it seems like, especially as you talk about public and private circulation, it looked like the only public way to get across the building was directly through the gym, and maybe that's not the case. Maybe the diagram just needs to be, that color needs to be pulled a little further south, so that corridor on the south side that we see here with the ramp is included in that public circulation. But right now, the visual and physical circulation doesn't seem to jive super well, and I think that would make it just a little bit stronger if we got a sense that you could move freely through the space without having to engage in maybe a event going on in the middle of the building. I thought your renders were really successful as well. If you want to flip to those, they did a good job kind of showing the life in the building. The light quality is really nice. There's a warmth to them. It just seems like a place that would be fun to be in and spend your afternoon and evening in. I like that you showed the map at the very beginning as you move to this point, because when you get to the interior experience, you see a map where you see that some of these kids from junior high are coming 20 miles just to be here. So they're going to be spending likely a few hours here and more than that away from home just to be able to experience the space. So knowing that, it makes it even stronger to see the effort you put into making this welcoming and comfortable space. What's that texture on the wall in that middle, like the light? Right. In the middle there on the right, yeah.
Oh, this is the metal framing of the glass. Are you talking about this metal?
The white on the wall and the ceiling, is that just some sort of pattern, or?
Yes, this is actually a shadow light from the perforated screen above.
Oh, okay, got it. I liked how many different outdoor spaces you had on the roof as well. It's not just one thing that only one group can use at one time of the day. You have multiple options. If different organizations, someone wants to do yoga class one place, someone wants to have a kids activity in another place, that seemed to work well. But the rooftop area on the south side of the building, I thought probably could use another exit out of there. I'm not sure. It looked like it was kind of borderline of being big enough to have needing a second exit, but that's one of those building code things you'll get into later. But always think about making sure you have a safe amount of access from all your spaces.
Well, Jada, I like how you split the program between age groups. I think that makes total sense on how to organize the two bars and making the gym the link between the two. Spatially, very clear. I think the other strong point here is the visual connections that you created between the space. The one thing I struggle with is the entrance off of Ohio Street, making that the main entrance. And I think that's just because I don't know how people actually use the place. You made an observation that the bus drop off is the critical piece. And so I'll buy that. You know, there's still something in me that wants to put the main entrance on the other side of the building, but because it's based off of an actual observation you made, I'll get on board.
Yeah, in actuality, maybe they could have moved where they dropped the kids off, but the fact that you picked up on that detail and designed around it, in this case, in Fantasyland, works. In reality, maybe you could have checked into that a little more and before moving the entrance. So yeah, I agree with Aaron.
How much time did you guys spend on site for the project?
Site, our site visit.
Yeah.
We were there. We were there for about 3 hours total.
So you picked up on that just going there once?
Yeah, we happened to be
pretty good.
There. Yeah.
You know, the other thing while we're here on this image, I do like the little projection you made for the 2 activity rooms upstairs. That's pretty cool. You know, just the little framed piece that sticks out into the gym. That's nice.
Yeah, I think the visual connection to everything going on in the building when you're in the gym is very strong, and it's definitely apparent in this image. You feel like you're part of a community, even if you're in a room by yourself. You can see everything else going on.
Yeah, I worry. Part of me struggles with those spaces on each end of the gym if they're too skinny, but if you're passing through them, it forces you to, experience what's going on in the gym. So I go back and forth on that. Anything else?
You sound a little silent there. Anything else?
Oh, one thing, actually, I've noticed this in a few projects so far, but if I were you, I'd consider looking at how to hang those basketball hoops from the ceiling. It can turn into a bit of a safety hazard to have that pole coming down right in the middle of the court with people running back and forth. So that's why you typically see them hanging from the ceiling. And then it allows you to integrate that into your structural grid and think through those items as you try to integrate everything as seamlessly as possible.
Times that's how you can justify it as multi-use space, because then the thing can just swing up to the ceiling and then it's not there anymore and you can do something else in the space.
Okay, so thank you, everybody. All 6 of you did an amazing job. Really proud of what you guys did. I am going to move the jurors to a breakout room. I think. I don't see any breakout rooms here. So maybe Megan, you might have to do that, or make me the full host.
I had one last comment to everybody that presented today before we move into there. I think everyone is, dealing with the pandemic right now and adapting from going from presenting everything on a wall where we see everything at once to kind of a storyboard where you have to talk in more of a linear format. I think you guys have all transitioned to that really well. So kudos.
Agreed.
So I am going to move you to a breakout room. And Aaron, who would you like from BBN to come?
Let's have, gosh, I would think anybody who is from BBN.
You want all the BBN folks there?
Yeah, could I get, well, just
I can do all the BBN folks, no problem.
that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay.
What time should we meet back up, Wendy?
What do you guys think? 20 minutes? 30 minutes?
I think, let's see, I might appreciate 30 minutes.
So it is now 3:20, so 3:50.
Sounds great.
Sounds good.
Fantastic. Thanks, everybody. We'll see everybody here at 3:50.
50, so our call time is here. Okay, well, let's start by just having some general comments from our guest jurors about what they saw today, sort of comments that go across the board.
I can start with that. I mean, it's certainly an honor to be invited here to be a part of this. This is a great event to, celebrate third-year students and all their work, and it is impressive work indeed. We see a lot of merit in all the projects that are here, a lot of detail, a lot of levels of thought about who the client is and how to make this a successful project for them. That it's not just thinking about architecture, it's thinking about people and making a positive impact. So we admire all the students' work. Of course, we have to make a hard job of ranking them. So, they all deserve merit. So, Nick, anything?
Yeah, I think I'd echo Tim's thoughts about just thanks for having us aboard today. And we really enjoyed looking at you guys' work. There was really high quality projects here. I think across the board, the level of consistency in each person's presentation was really strong. I think that's something that usually develops more towards fourth and fifth year. So I was really impressed with the consistency of quality in each person's presentation. Consistency of thought of how you guys tell the story about how you got to your final decision was successful as well. Again, this very linear format of presenting is kind of new to architecture school these days, and I think you guys adapted well, and it'll be something that you can take into your jobs, because that's kind of how we present anyway. So that'll be a great skill to continue to hone until you graduate. Yeah, the level of drawings was strong, and I was also impressed with the level of technical knowledge for third year projects. I've done reviews at other schools, Iowa State, Nebraska. You guys are definitely up there at the top with the work going on at all the other schools. So kudos to you guys.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we were so happy to have you here. I know it takes a time commitment on your part, and we're blown away every year by how generous our jurors are, and just how fun it is to talk to you. I came away on Monday feeling really energized after your presentation, and I just really appreciated your comments today.
Thank you.
So it's my job to announce some scholarships. Today we are going to announce 4 finalists who are going to get a $500 scholarship. And they are Amber Pryor, Jo Beth Hancock, Matt Eichler, and Abigail Hutchinson. Receiving a, yes. This is weird to do on Zoom. Receiving a special merit award and a $1,000 scholarship is Jada Rezak. Which means that the honor award and a $1,500 scholarship goes to Natalie Cox. Congratulations.
Excellent.
We didn't hear any boos, so we must have done a good job.
They're all muted. You guys all rock. It was great stuff.
Yeah, thanks everyone. Just echoing, we wouldn't want, or I wouldn't want to hang my 3rd-year project up next to these. They just, the projects get better and better and better every year that we do this.
Yeah.
So yeah, thanks again to our jurors and the university for all your support year in and year out of doing this too.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Nick. Thanks, Wendy, for organizing. Thanks, Aaron and Austin and Nancy and Olivia, all of you. Thanks so much for doing this again. And what a great event, and congratulations to our winners. Thank you to the 3rd-year faculty for doing such a great job in unique situations. So yeah, just thanks everybody.
We really do have to thank BBN for sponsoring this every year. It's been such a highlight for the 3rd-year students to have this, and it's really a special thing. So thank you all.
Oh, we didn't know if it would happen this year. It's been so weird. I'm glad we did.
Yeah, we always get so much out of it too. So.
It's been an honor to be a part of it. Thank you again for the invite.
And thank you, Tim and Nick. You did a wonderful job in both your lecture and in engaging with the students and understanding their projects so quickly. That's a really good skill to have. Thank you.
All right.